Elena Rodriguez stood at the far edge of the training field, the crisp morning light glinting off the metal targets scattered across the dusty ground. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, not a single strand out of place. Around her, dozens of young recruits fidgeted with nervous anticipation as they waited for their first official weapons assignment. At 22, Elena was older than most of them, though it wasn't her age that made her stand out. It was her quiet composure. While others shuffled their feet and whispered, she remained still, posture straight, eyes steady, projecting a confidence that didn't need words. Sergeant Patterson, a broad-shouldered man with a voice that could cut through thunder, paced down the line calling out names from his clipboard. One by one, recruits stepped forward to receive their first sidearms. Johnson, Beretta, Martinez, Glock, Thompson, Smith & Wesson. Each order barked out, each weapon handed over. The nervous energy around the group grew thicker. Some recruits looked excited, others downright terrified. Elena watched silently, her face unreadable. Then Patterson's voice echoed again. Rodriguez. Elena stepped forward, her boots crunching on the gravel. The other trainees turned slightly, curious. She'd kept to herself through the first weeks of basic training, but everyone had noticed how sharp she was, methodical, precise, never missing a step. Patterson glanced up from the clipboard. You'll be taking the, sir, Elena interrupted, her tone polite but unwavering. I'd like to request a rifle instead. The air shifted instantly. The hum of chatter died. A few heads turned. A few smirks appeared. Patterson stared at her as if he hadn't heard right. A rifle, he repeated, his deep voice carrying across the open ground. Rodriguez, this is basic firearms orientation. Everyone starts with handguns. That's the process. Elena kept her gaze fixed straight ahead. Yes, sir, I understand, but I believe I would gain more from rifle training today. A ripple of laughter broke out behind her. One of the recruits, a lanky kid named Davis with too much confidence for his own good, muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "What is she, some kind of sniper already?" The comment drew more chuckles. Another voice joined in, Williams. Maybe she thinks this is Call of Duty. The laughter grew, but Elena didn't move a muscle. Her breathing was even, her stance locked in place, as though the noise around her didn't exist. Patterson raised a hand, silencing the group. Still, his brow furrowed with doubt. 15 years of shaping recruits had taught him to recognize overconfidence when he saw it. The military's training sequence existed for a reason, and those who tried to skip steps usually learned hard lessons. Rodriguez, he said, walking closer, his boots kicking up dust. Any rifle experience? Hunting? Maybe a military background? Yes, sir, she replied evenly. No explanation followed. Patterson waited, expecting more. None came. From behind, a recruit muttered something about little girls and toy guns. Elena didn't react. Patterson studied her face. What he found wasn't arrogance, it was steadiness. Focus. The kind of calm he'd seen in soldiers with real battlefield experience. There was something about her eyes, something he couldn't quite place. He exhaled through his nose, tone softening slightly. Rodriguez, rifle training's part of a later phase. We start small for a reason. A sidearm's easier to master, simpler to handle. Rifles take coordination, discipline, and control. Elena nodded once. Understood, sir. Still, I'm confident I'm ready for that challenge. Another wave of laughter rippled through the recruits. Davis grinned, shaking his head. This should be good, he whispered to the guy next to him. Patterson didn't smile. He just looked at Elena, the silent, determined woman standing alone against a sea of doubters, and wondered for the first time that morning if maybe, just maybe, she knew something they didn't. Can't wait to see her try to handle that recoil, someone whispered, grinning. Sergeant Patterson ignored the comment, eyes flicking between his clipboard and the woman standing before him. Protocol told him to refuse her request and stick to the program. But something in Elena's quiet certainty made him pause. Years of training recruits had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts told him there was far more to Elena Rodriguez than met the eye. You know what, Rodriguez, he said finally, his tone grudging but curious, against my better judgment, I'll let you try. But if you can't handle it, you're going straight back to handgun training, no arguments, no second chances. Understood, Sir, Elena replied without a flicker of hesitation. Patterson walked to the weapons rack and pulled down a standard-issue M4 carbine. Its black metal gleamed in the sunlight, a weapon meant for trained soldiers, not beginners. He ran a quick inspection, checked the chamber, and carried it back to her. This is an M4, he said, holding it out. More power, more weight, and a recoil that's dropped plenty of first-timers flat on their backs. Elena accepted the rifle. Patterson watched closely, and his brows lifted slightly. She held it like someone who'd done this before. Her stance was natural, her grip flawless, her finger discipline perfect. She checked the chamber and safety in precise sequence, not missing a single step. Those weren't the movements of an amateur. Around them, the other recruits started to gather, curiosity turning into anticipation. A few pulled out their phones, eager to capture what they expected to be a spectacular failure. Patterson could feel the excitement rising, half mockery, half genuine curiosity. Elena stepped calmly toward the firing line. The morning air had grown warm, the light sharp and bright. Across the field, targets stood waiting 100 meters away. Behind her, whispers buzzed like flies. Patterson called, "Range is hot." Elena brought the rifle to her shoulder, feet planted solidly. The heavy weapon looked perfectly balanced in her hands. Patterson folded his arms, eyes narrowed. He'd given her 5 rounds to prove herself, 5 chances to fall flat. In his mind, he was already preparing the speech he'd give when she missed every shot or stumbled backward from the recoil. Elena inhaled slowly, exhaled halfway, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked sharply. The recoil thudded against her shoulder, but Elena barely moved. Downrange, the target jerked. Through his binoculars, Patterson blinked. A perfect hole, dead center in the bullseye. Lucky shot, he muttered, though there was doubt in his voice. Elena chambered another round, fired again. Another dead center hit, so close to the first that the holes nearly merged. The murmurs faded. Even Davis, who had mocked her earlier, had stopped grinning. Third shot, bullseye. Fourth shot, identical. Fifth, same result. When the smoke cleared, the target looked untouched except for a single neat hole right through its center. The range was silent except for the distant pop of handguns, recruits struggling to hit their targets at a quarter of her distance. Patterson lowered his binoculars slowly, eyes fixed on the young woman standing steady at the line. 15 years training soldiers, and he'd never seen shooting like that. Not from rookies, not even from most of his instructors. "Rodriguez," he said quietly, stepping closer. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Elena lowered her rifle, flicked the safety on, and replied simply, "My grandfather taught me, sir." Patterson's voice softened. "Your grandfather must have been one hell of a teacher." "Yes, sir, he was." He studied her face. Calm, respectful, unreadable. "What did your grandfather do for a living, Rodriguez?" She hesitated briefly. "He was a soldier, sir." "What kind of soldier?" Elena looked down for half a second before replying. "He didn't talk much about his service. Just said he'd been in the army for a long time." By now, the other recruits had gathered around. Someone retrieved the target and brought it back. Even the loudest skeptics fell silent when they saw it up close. Williams, who had laughed earlier, shook his head. "I've been hunting since I was 10, and I've never seen a grouping like that." Davis, who had made the "toy gun" comment, said nothing. His own target looked like a shotgun pattern, holes scattered everywhere, several missing entirely. Word spread fast. Other instructors wandered over, drawn by the commotion. Sergeant Martinez, who ran advanced marksmanship training, picked up Elena's target and gave a low whistle. "Patterson, who's your shooter?" "Rodriguez," Patterson replied. "First day with a military rifle, supposedly." Martinez looked at Elena with genuine respect. "Rodriguez, how do you feel about joining our advanced marksmanship program? We don't usually take recruits this early, but talent like this doesn't come around often." Elena turned to Patterson, silently asking permission. He nodded once. "I'd be honored, sir," she said. As training wrapped up, Elena found herself surrounded by questions and praise she clearly wasn't used to. She answered politely but briefly, maintaining the professionalism expected of her rank. But not everyone was impressed. Captain Morrison, one of the senior training officers, had heard about the morning's events and decided to see for himself. He approached as Elena was cleaning her rifle, his expression hard. "Rodriguez," he began, "I hear you caused quite a stir today." "I just followed instructions, sir," Elena replied, calm as ever. "Did you now?" Morrison studied the target, then looked her over. "This kind of precision doesn't happen by accident. Want to tell me what you're really doing here in basic training?" Elena frowned slightly. "Sir, I'm here to serve my country, just like everyone else." Morrison's tone sharpened. "In my experience, people who shoot like that usually have backgrounds we need to know about. Special forces, private contractor, foreign military." "No, sir, nothing like that," she said evenly. "I grew up on a farm in Montana. My grandfather taught me to shoot for practical reasons." "A farm in Montana," Morrison echoed, skeptical. "And your grandfather just happened to train you like a professional sniper?" Elena's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed steady. "My grandfather believed that if something was worth doing, it was worth doing right." Morrison's eyes lingered on her face for a moment longer, then he nodded slowly. "Be careful, Rodriguez. Skill like yours draws attention. And attention brings scrutiny. Make sure you're ready for that." He turned and left without another word. Elena resumed cleaning her rifle in silence. Around her, a few recruits gathered again, this time with respect rather than mockery. "Rodriguez," Williams said, shaking his head in disbelief, "that was unreal. How long did your grandfather train you to shoot like that?" Elena looked up briefly. "He started teaching me when I was 8. We practiced almost every day until I left for college." "Every day?" Davis asked, still humbled. "For how long?" "About 10 years, Elena answered simply. The recruits exchanged glances, the realization settling in. 10 years of daily training, that explained her skill. But it also deepened the mystery. Who spends a decade teaching a child to shoot with the precision of a sniper? As dusk settled over the training grounds and the recruits lined up for dinner, Elena's thoughts drifted to her grandfather. Carlos Rodriguez had been a man of few words, the kind who carried entire worlds behind his quiet eyes. On their small Montana farm, he'd taught her many things: how to ride, how to fix machinery, how to endure hardship, but the lessons about shooting had always stood apart. "Mia," he would tell her, "a gun's no different from any tool. But it's a tool that demands respect and precision. You don't just use it, you understand it." Back then, Elena never questioned his insistence on discipline and control. It was simply how life was structured on the farm. Only years later did she realize that her grandfather's methods were nothing like the average hunter's. They were precise, tactical, and methodical in ways that hinted at something deeper. Now, sitting in the mess hall with her tray of food, surrounded by tired voices and laughter, Elena felt the shift in the air around her. The quiet anonymity she'd enjoyed since arriving at boot camp had vanished after her display on the range. People watched her now, whispered, respected her, maybe, but also wondered. 3 days after that remarkable shooting session, the daily drills resumed, but Elena's schedule had changed. She'd been reassigned to the advanced marksmanship unit, where her results consistently surpassed those of trainees who'd been there far longer. Her name was spreading quietly through the ranks, passed along with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. During one afternoon's field exercise, her squad was tasked with a basic reconnaissance scenario, moving silently through rough terrain while gathering intel on simulated enemy positions. Elena slipped through the environment with the same focus she brought to the shooting range. Every step, every glance, every movement was deliberate. From a distance, Sergeant Martinez watched her carefully. Something about the way she moved didn't fit the profile of a standard recruit. Her spacing, her awareness of cover, her ability to anticipate sightlines, it all seemed far too advanced. "Rodriguez," Martinez called out after the session ended. A word. Elena approached, posture straight, expression unreadable. "Yes, sir. I've been observing you," Martinez said, his tone calm but curious. "Your tactical instincts, they're not what I'd expect from someone at your level." "Care to explain?" "Sir," Elena replied evenly, "I just try to pay attention and apply what's taught." Martinez nodded slowly, though the skepticism in his eyes remained. "Tell me about your grandfather. What branch was he in?" Elena shifted slightly, the first flicker of unease she'd shown in weeks. He didn't talk much about his assignments, sir. Only that he served for many years. I've been training recruits for 2 decades, Martinez said, folding his arms. And I've never seen instincts like yours in basic. The way you shoot, the way you move, it's professional. Before Elena could respond, the sound of an approaching vehicle drew their attention. A jeep rolled to a stop near the training field. A tall officer in full dress uniform stepped out, accompanied by 2 aides. The insignia on her shoulders marked her as a brigadier general. General Patricia Hawthorne, a name known across the armed forces, respected, formidable, and deeply involved in advanced training programs. Her sudden appearance sent a ripple of tension through the area. General Hawthorne, Martinez barked, snapping to attention. We weren't informed of an inspection today, ma'am. This isn't an inspection, Hawthorne replied, her tone clipped but calm. I'm here to observe a particular recruit. I understand you have someone displaying exceptional marksmanship. Martinez's eyes flicked toward Elena. Yes, ma'am. Recruit Rodriguez. I'd like to see her shoot, Hawthorne said simply. Within minutes, the firing range was alive with movement. Targets were reset at 100, 200, and 300 meters. Word spread fast. Everyone who could slip away came to watch. A general didn't just drop in to observe a trainee. Elena stood at the firing line, the same rifle she'd used days before resting in her hands. General Hawthorne watched from behind, arms crossed, face unreadable. Rodriguez, she ordered, engage all 3 distances, 5 rounds per target. Elena nodded and took her stance. Her breathing slowed, her hands steadied. The first 5 rounds tore through the 100-meter target, tight and clean. The murmurs started, low and impressed. She shifted to the 200-meter line, compensating for wind drift and bullet drop. Again, 5 shots, 5 hits, all within a small cluster at the center. When she aimed for the 300-meter targets, the range fell silent. Even the instructors leaned in. Long-distance accuracy required not just skill, but instinct. Knowledge of ballistics, wind, temperature, all filtered into muscle memory. Elena fired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each shot deliberate, unhurried. When the last round echoed across the field, the spotting scope confirmed it, a hand-sized grouping dead center. General Hawthorne said nothing for a long moment. Then she looked up, eyes sharpened with something new, recognition. Rodriguez, she called, front and center. Elena stepped forward and stood at attention. That was extraordinary, Hawthorne said. Where did you learn to shoot like that? With my grandfather, ma'am. On our farm in Montana. Hawthorne nodded thoughtfully. Your grandfather's name? Carlos Rodriguez, ma'am. For a heartbeat, something flickered in Hawthorne's expression. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Be specific, Rodriguez. What do you know about his service record? His unit. Elena hesitated. Ma'am, he served in Vietnam. Nearly 20 years in the army, but he never spoke about details. Describe him, Hawthorne said softly. Medium height, dark hair, gray as he got older. A scar on his left hand, from a farm accident. And, Elena paused. A tattoo, ma'am. A bird. I never knew what it meant. The general froze. Slowly, she reached into her pocket, unlocked her phone, and showed Elena an image. A black bird, wings spread, talons extended. Was it like this? Elena's eyes widened. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Hawthorne pocketed the phone and straightened. Everyone, back to your duties, she commanded. Demonstrations over. Once the field cleared, she turned back to Elena. Rodriguez, walk with me. They moved to a small office near the edge of the facility. Inside, Hawthorne dismissed her aides and closed the door. Her tone softened slightly. I need you to tell me everything you know about your grandfather's service, she said. Every detail. Ma'am, I don't know much, Elena admitted. He never spoke about it. The tattoo you described, Hawthorne said, leaning forward. It belonged to a highly classified unit active during Vietnam. It wasn't ordinary army. A chill ran down Elena's spine. What kind of unit, ma'am? There was a long pause. Then Hawthorne spoke quietly. They were called Black Talon. The name hung in the air like a shadow. I don't understand, Elena whispered. Who were they? Black Talon, Hawthorne said, Pacing to the window, was a deep-cover special operations group active from 1967 to 1973. Long-range reconnaissance, covert eliminations. Most of their missions are still sealed to this day. Alina's pulse quickened. And you think my grandfather was part of them? Hawthorne turned. I don't think. I know. Carlos Rodriguez was one of the most decorated members of Black Talon. And one of the most gifted snipers this country has ever seen. Elena felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her. The gentle man who taught her to fish and fix fences had been an elite military operative. Ma'am, how can you be sure? Because I've been studying the Black Talon archives for a decade, Hawthorne said. Piecing together fragments of what was erased. Your grandfather's file surfaced recently. His call sign was Eagle Eye. She paused, then added quietly, his longest confirmed shot, over 800 meters. Using weapons that would be museum pieces today. Tears welled in Alina's eyes. She remembered his patience, his quiet strength, his insistence on discipline. Why didn't he ever tell me? Because soldiers like him carried ghosts, Hawthorne said gently. The things they did, those aren't bedtime stories for granddaughters. But he saw something in you. Something worth passing on. Elena swallowed hard. You mean he was training me? Hawthorne nodded. He wasn't teaching you to hunt. He was preparing you for precision warfare. Every lesson, breathing, patience, movement, it was sniper doctrine. Silence filled the room as the truth sank in. Ma'am, Elena asked quietly, what happened to the rest of them, the Black Talon unit? Most never found peace, Hawthorne replied. That kind of life, it leaves marks. Some disappeared, some broke. Your grandfather was one of the few who found a way to live again. Elena thought of his quiet mornings, his distant stares toward the horizon. Now she understood. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Why now? Because the world's changed, Rodriguez, Hawthorne said. But the need for sharpshooters hasn't. If anything, it's greater than ever. And you have the same instincts your grandfather did. Elena's voice was steady, but her heart raced. What are you asking of me, ma'am? I'm asking you to consider joining a program that would refine the skills he gave you. Voluntary, demanding, but worthy of his legacy. Before Elena could answer, a soft knock came at the door. An aide whispered something to the general. Hawthorne stood. Report to Building 47 at 0800 tomorrow, she said. There's someone I want you to meet. Elena rose and saluted. Yes, ma'am. As Hawthorne turned to leave, she paused. Rodriguez, she said quietly, your grandfather would be proud, not just of what you've done, but of what you're becoming. When the door closed, Elena stood in silence. Carlos Rodriguez, her grandfather, Eagle Eye of Black Talon. The farmer who had raised her had once been one of America's deadliest snipers. That night, as she walked back toward the barracks, the stars above seemed sharper, closer somehow. Her world had changed, and tomorrow, it would change even more.